Within the history of St. Petersburg, I think in Petropavlovsk fortress this is the second museum by importance after the Petropavlovsk Cathedral. But frankly speaking, of course, we cannot compare these two objects because Petropavlovsk Cathedral is a tomb of Romanov family, but this is museum. It has the shape like O, as you saw now, and two floors. At the beginning, there is a hall concerning to foundation of the city. On this market, we can see how the people 300 years ago lifted up the big column. I think you know well-known columns in the Vasily Ostrovsky Island in the opposite side from the Winter's Palace. And of course, second hall is about the sea, the ships, because St. Petersburg is a sea town. And it's directly connected to the Baltic Sea. Next hall dedicated to railways. In St. Petersburg at the end of 19th century there were 4 railways. Different cars, different symbols, and of course different histories. Here is the office, I think the head of the bank, and special typing machines which were used 150 years ago. Please don't forget that at the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century, St. Petersburg city was the center of trade in the northwest part of Russia. So next to halls dedicated to the trade, And what I like the most, the samples of advertisement or marketing at that time. So as we see, I think, the people who created such advertisement were very talented. This hall is, you already understood, about fashion, mostly women one. This building I would call piece of art. It's really true, because you can learn every element of life, inhabitants of this house. Look, it's very, very interesting. The only minus, it's glass, and not glass, glares. Let's to say why, because because of glare it's difficult sometimes to see what is inside. I think administration of the museum had to buy anti-glare glasses, but for some unknown reasons they just installed standard one and decided to save money. Here is another elements of everyday life, kitchen, water closet, bath, and so on, what the people used at the end of 19th century. Here is a hall dedicated to transport of St. Petersburg. Horsepower initially, yes, and then the first cars. A lot of rare photos. Here we can see the square in front of Moscow railway station in St. Petersburg. So if you arrive to St. Petersburg, so you usually use or airport Pulkovo or this railway station. You can see this church with blue domes. Yeah, it was demolished after the revolution, and instead of this church now there is the entrance to the metro. And this is a silent movie. The name of this short movie, How to Tame Women. Very small but very funny movie. So welcome to Museum the History of St. Petersburg.